based on people I know quite well, she comes well recommended. So, and then Marvin Neal, Pastor Neal, is that correct? So welcome very much to the commission, and we're glad to have you on board. Thank y'all for coming today. If you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Traffic and Parking Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. I seek for an approval of today's agenda.
So moved.
We have a first.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda is approved. Seek approval of the minutes of the June 11, 2018 meeting.
So moved.
We have a first. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. The consent agenda. Note that items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda.
I'd like to move to make a motion to remove item K, authorize removal of truck prohibition on Couchville Pike between Reynolds Road and Bell Road.
Okay. All right, we have a motion to remove that from the consent. We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that item's been removed from the consent agenda. Are there any other items that people have on the consent agenda? Okay, if not, I'll read the consent agenda for its approval. Mandatory referrals. Council District 19, Proposal 2018M017AB001, a request for the abandonment of a portion of Magazine Street from Mansion Street northeastward, approximately 168 feet to its terminus. Easements are to be retained, requested by Civil Site Design Group. Parking regulations. Authorized valet parking from 5 p.m. to 12 a.m. daily at 1929 Broadway, requested by Trinity Parking. Traffic regulations. Item C, authorized four-way stop control at Cobble Street and Bradford Hills Drive, requested by Councilmember Swope. Item D, authorized removal of yield sign at Shadow Lane and Riverwood Circle and replaced with a three-way stop, requested by Metro Public Works. Item E, modified speed limit on Maplewood Trace from 35 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour, requested by Metro Public Works. Item F, modified speed limit from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour on East Oak Highland from Blue Hole Road to Bryan Circle, requested by a resident. Item G, modified speed limit from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour on Oriole Place from Richard Jones Road to Shackelford Drive, requested by Metro Public Works. And I think, Councilmember Pulley, this is in your district. Item H, authorized stop sign on Morrison Street at Jackson Street, requested by resident. Item I, authorized all four-way stop on Pello Street at Merritt Avenue, requested by Councilmember Sledge. Item J, modified speed limit from 35 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour on Lakeland Drive between McGavick Pike and Donaldson Pike, requested by Councilmember Syracuse. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's been approved. Councilmember Pulley, you had asked to step forward and speak for a moment.
Yes, right here.
Yeah, just have a seat.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Chairman, I appreciate the point of personal privilege. My reason for being here passed on consent, so I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge your two new members and how wonderful they are. And I can speak on behalf of Marvin Neal because I do know him personally. Fine man and a person I was privileged to bring before the mayor and privileged to advocate for. I do think it's important to note that When I talk about a person's strengths, I also need to bring up a few of their weaknesses. And I do want to let you know that his weakness is in the area of judgment. You will hear this throughout his tenure on the board. Specifically, Marvin played football at university in what we know as a mid-major conference down here, the Big Ten, and played at University of Wisconsin and has been arguing ever since I have known him, in spite of the overwhelming evidence to the contrary, that the Big Ten is better than the Southeastern Conference. So you will also hear him on many occasions leading up to the season tell us how Wisconsin will win the national championship each and every year. I don't think they've done that yet, but we still continue to hear that. So I just wanted to let you know what you're in for here. So thank you for that
Thank
privilege.
you for speaking. And
Yes.
he'll fit right in. So welcome. All right. A new business item number 1 is Councilmember Sledge here? Yes. Okay. The request is to modify the speed limit from 30 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour on Elliott Avenue from Hillview Heights to Inverness Avenue. Councilmember Sledge? Yes, sir. Would you like to speak about this matter?
Sure, absolutely.
Briefly.
All right. Commissioners, thank you. I know I get to be a regular guest with you here. So the request was made by constituents of mine who live on Elliott Avenue to reduce the speed limit between Hillview Heights and Inverness. I think it was initially noticed as another portion of Elliott. There are several pieces of Elliott all the way down. This portion right here, the important thing is, as you can see, as we have talked about in other cases, the district I represent is changing rapidly. And so the site that you are looking at right now is now completely finished. And there are more than 300 units that back right up to Elliott Avenue. The street has not been, the right-of-way may have been widened ever so slightly, but the truth is we're putting hundreds more people up and down this street now than there used to be. And this place is piling up. This is the Broadstone on 8th project. You can also see, as is marked on the map, Holler and Dash. There's another restaurant that space is turning over right now, and I think there's actually going to be an expansion of a brewery go in there as well. So the traffic over here has picked up significantly, and what I've heard from residents is that people are more or less using this as their either they're coming home and they're flying in, or as they're getting out, they're starting off real fast. So as you can see on the counter locations in the speed study, they're 85th percentile was at 24 miles per hour. Conversations I had with Public Works were that we could either go for 20 or 25. Conversation I had with them and with residents was, residents initially were asking me to go to 15. And I said, well, I don't know that we can get there, but I will certainly advocate for 20 to see if we can get there. I know that has been a goal of some neighborhoods across the urban core. I'm asking it for just this street because it is such a particular instance, and quite frankly, because I had residents who were requesting it.
Okay. Commissioners have any comments concerning this item?
Councilman, and perhaps you all can talk about this from Public Works. I'm curious that 20 miles an hour is hard to drive, without just staying on your brakes. And I know there's a big consensus to go to 25 to make things pedestrian friendly, and that's happened a lot around the city. Are there any other places that are 20 miles an hour that you all know about?
In the district I represent, in Woodland and Waverly, several years ago, they got down to 25. There is a sign that is marked in Woodland and Waverly, if memory serves correctly, at 20. I could not tell you if that is marked correctly or not, but all throughout Woodland and Waverly it is at 25. I think really one of the efforts was, because this is such a dense development now, and because it has created such a very odd impact on the street, to try and see if we could get to 20 to really emphasize to residents, the new residents in particular over here, that this is not a place where you pull off and you start burning rubber, that you can get to 20. I know what you're talking about consensus with Public Works. Some representative from Public Works reached out to me about doing 25, but I was told early on, once the numbers came back, we could go for 20 or 25, and because I committed to the residents to going for 20, that's what I wanted to do.
They've done Public Works did 3 pilot programs last year where they went into 3 different residential communities all over Davidson County, and they did the main thoroughfares at 25 and the smaller, more congested side streets at 20 miles per hour. There's one in Lower East Nashville, I believe. Cleveland Park. And there's one over in Belmont. Is it Belmont?
It's Hillsborough West End.
Hillsborough West End, and another one in Antioch. So they have done it out there.
How has that worked as far as, do you know, patrolling or?
Initially, when they first started it, what they kind of did is the council person in that district did sort of a blitz notifying all the constituents of the speed changes. And then we went in there after the change, give them a little adjustment period, and then we walked in there and saw that they did not adjust very well. So we made a lot of traffic stops and issued a lot of warnings to let them know. And after that, we went in and did a day or two, a couple of days of writing tickets, and really hadn't heard anything else since then.
So you think it's kind of being a success, or?
I think so. The residential areas, for the most part, with regards to the traffic division, that's not where we're working our accidents. That's not where we're seeing the accidents. But the main driving thing in the residential areas is anything over 40 miles per hour for a pedestrian, and the survivability rate is not very good. As speed drops, that survivability rate drops dramatically. And a lot of the residential areas have on-street parking. Does this have on-street parking?
It does. As part of the development, they placed on-street parking on the east side, as well as created a sidewalk that wasn't there before, moving down, which we're very grateful for, going down Inverness to 8th, but it is encouraging more pedestrian traffic.
So the problem you have when you have on-street parking is it's there are several camps that believe that lowers the speed anyway. People naturally will lower the speed. But if the speed limit's there and people are obeying the speed limit, 20 miles per hour, when you have people that are darting in between those cars or coming from those cars where a driver can't see them, the survivability rate is greatly increased by the lower speed limit.
Commissioner, if I could,
Yes.
we're planning on giving you all a complete update of the walking district and our subsequent recommendations next meeting, in the August meeting. I will say that we did see a decrease when we lowered the speed limit from 35 to 25 or from 30 to 20, as most of the cases were. When we lowered it to 20 miles an hour, we didn't see traffic going 20 miles an hour. We really didn't expect to, but we did see some marginal decrease. We saw more of a decrease when we lowered it to 25. We saw a much higher rate of compliance at 25 than we did at 20. That's not surprising to us. I will say on this street, this is a very narrow street. It's probably more narrow and more, going on in terms of parking and all than any other street we had in our walking district neighborhood. So I think Councilman Sledge is correct. We could probably go either way with this one with an 85 percentile speed at 24. It's right there. I think either speed would be appropriate.
Any other comments from the commissioners?
I think based on the community feedback and the fact that it's already at 24, 20 seems appropriate if that's what the community
All
would
right,
like to do.
so do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's been approved, council member. You could just
Stay here.
because the next item going to do is also related to you before we get to an item that was on our consent agenda, and that is the appeal request for a four-way stop at Faville Avenue and Whitney Avenue.
Yep, Faville and Whitney.
Faville
Yep.
and Whitney.
So and I cannot say enough how grateful I am to Public Works, who continues to throw counters and lines out all over my district. So we did a study out here, and as you can see, there's a two-way stop right now. So what you're looking at, Whitney and Vavelle, is just off of Nolensville, and we're going obviously west east here. That two-way stop is, as you can tell, almost purely residential. And it has a major grade as it goes west to east on Whitney. You come up, and I was actually just there the other day, and there are some folks who, if you don't know, you may treat it as a four-way stop. And I had just that experience where I stopped on Vavelle going north, and a pickup truck just waited for me because they didn't realize it wasn't a four-way. What sort of precipitates this request is that we are seeing major development over here as well. We just had a 312 Pizza open over the weekend down here, which we're very excited about, but there is very limited parking in this area, and what's occurring is you're starting to see more people look for parking, and they are looking in a neighborhood that they are not familiar with, and they may potentially hit this. The other thing is you'll see in the paper today, in fact, we just put 82 units just north of this site, and we've got another probably 100 plus coming on the corridor over here. And as that happens, sometimes that starts to squeeze in. Infill development is happening over here, but not to the degree of some other parts of the district.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any comments? Commissioners?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second?
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilmember, you have your four-way stop.
Thank y'all so much.
Approved. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Yeah.
All right. We moved an item from the consent agenda about truck prohibition on Couchville Pike. Is Councilmember, how do you pronounce it? Who?
Wait.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Councilmember. I know there's some people here to speak as well.
Okay.
So, all right.
All right, good afternoon. I'm here regarding removing the truck prohibition on Couchville Pike between Reynolds Road and Bell Road. And the reason I'm asking for this is there's an industrial park right past Reynolds Road on Couchville Pike that's been there for several years. It's my understanding that these signs should have been removed back when the industrial park was built, but somehow they slipped through the cracks. Currently, there are several tractor trailers that travel Couchville Pike to get to this location. And there's a FedEx going in, so there's going to be many more. So that's the reason I'm asking for it. I mean, it's kind of hard for Metro to enforce that truck prohibition sign being there when they have to get to their business. So.
All right, thank you, Council. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this? Okay, I know there's some folks here to speak about this as well. Okay, if you would step forward and state your name and where you live, please. Thank you, Councilmember. Just have a seat and state your name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
My name is Betty Lynn Dooley, and my address is 50 Fawn Creek Pass. I live in Woodland Point, which is on Bell Road, relatively close. It backs up to the lake.
Can you speak up a little bit or move the microphone up, please?
Okay. This stretch of Bell Road between Couchville Pike and I-40 is two-lane with some turning lanes. And it's already, one of the most, I think it was rated one of the more highly traffic corridors in Davidson County. And this same exact proposal came up 18 months ago before this group. And at the time, Chip was here, and he said something, I can't quote him, but I believe it was that engineering, that this section of Couchville Pike would not support the additional weight. And that was the reason that these restrictions had been put there in the first place. Well, I drove down that part of Couchville yesterday just to see if I recognized that anything had been done, and I could not tell that anything had been done to change that. Also the turn radius, if you're turning off of Couchville onto Bell Road, I think they determined at that time that the turn radius right there would not be adequate for some larger trucks. And also, just for safety purposes, for those of us that live out there, there are only 2, if there's an accident, traffic can be blocked for hours. And that means that emergency vehicles couldn't get to a part of here without having to either go down Elm Hill Pike or Couchville Pike to Donaldson and then make a whole loop around. So, you know, if it's something that's really time sensitive, it's going to not, they're not going to be able to get there in time. I had to make that loop one day myself because of an accident. It took me 45 minutes to get where I was going. So just from safety and traffic issues that are already severe and getting worse with some new apartments that have been approved. And because of what Chip said the last time we were here about this infrastructure of the road itself not being adequate to support that, I would ask that you, if there's any way to do that, permanently remove this item from the agenda item.
Okay. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak about this item? Is there someone, Mr. Hammond, is there someone from Public Works to address this issue, please?
I'll do my best to address a couple of the issues. The first issue that was raised is about a complete prohibition. As most of you know, we cannot completely prohibit trucks from using any street as long as that delivery is being made to an address on the street. So any business that is operating with trucks now, those exclusions do not are not applicable to those vehicles. You can always, a truck can always use the street if he is conducting business at an address on that street. The second one about the pavement structure, I cannot confirm that. Mr. Knopf may have done some looking into the pavement structure on that. I would have to do the same. I cannot comment on whether or not that pavement structure is adequate for oversized vehicles. On the turn radius issue, just by inspection, I would say that is not an issue. That has a wide right turn lane there. The left turn lane looks very adequate to me as well. So I don't believe that's part of the consideration. Traffic in general on Bell Road is substantial. I believe there's about 17,000 vehicles a day on it. That probably makes pulling out of Couchville Pike at that intersection very difficult at times. There's not much doubt about that. Sight distance appears good, so I don't think that's a major consideration about why you would restrict trucks or not. So I think the issue, as I see it, would be, is there truly a pavement limitation that needs to be considered? Unfortunately, I don't have the answer to that this afternoon.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Does that,
Commissioners?
yes, I have a question about weight limit. Is that what you're talking about with pavement?
I am. Right now, it's signed no trucks except deliveries, and I believe there's a placard stating that it's over 5,000 pounds. Those are the trucks that are prohibited.
So, are people that are more than 5,000 pounds, sorry, are they currently using this?
They can use it as long as they are making a delivery on that street. I don't have any data that would say there's this many trucks or anything like that, so I can't confirm that there are people doing that, but they would certainly be allowed to if they're conducting business at an address on the street.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious that we have an email that we're just noticing from Chip Knopf saying there's an engineer who conducted a study, but I guess I'm just curious if there's information out there, because I do remember this coming up 18 months ago, and I think we disapproved it because the businesses that were already there do have access, and there was concern about safety of the residents who kind of live and walk and drive along here. Is that my memory?
It was deferred indefinitely.
Okay. So, I mean, in my mind, I guess, council member, maybe you could answer if the businesses that are already here are able to still access their businesses. Is there a purpose beyond that to?
Oh, well, there's a new FedEx building going in right now, so that's going to be new trucks.
But they're already on. Is it on Couchville Pike?
It is.
So they will be able to access their facility if it's on. Is that correct? Yeah.
So the language that one is referring to is section 1236 110A of the Metropolitan Code. And it says, when signs are erected giving notice thereof, no person shall operate any vehicle with a gross weight in excess not specified at any time on any of the streets or parts of streets described in Schedule 10 attached to and made a part of this regulation, except that such vehicles may be operated thereon for the purpose of delivering or picking up materials or merchandise, and then only by entering such street at the intersection nearest the destination of the vehicle, and proceeding thereon no farther than the nearest intersection thereafter. So if the new FedEx business is located on Couchville Pike, it would be included within that exception, just like the older businesses that had previously operated on Couchville Pike would be, as long as they are delivering or picking up materials or merchandise from a destination on that street.
Well, I mean, it's just the sign is kind of being, they don't think they can use Couchville Pike. So it's kind of like we're trying to keep them away from their business. So that's the reason that I'm asking for it. And the reason it was deferred indefinitely 18 months ago, I couldn't be here. My father was having open heart surgery, and he had a lot of complications. So I just asked for it to be deferred indefinitely for that reason. So.
Fine. Any other comments from commissioners?
I guess I am curious from either you can speak to this or someone else in the neighborhood. Are there trucks, do we think, that use this road who are not going to one of those two businesses? Is that part of the concern? Or
from the neighbors that I've talked to that reside on Couchville Pike, the people that use the tractor trailers that use this truck are going to the industrial park. And the majority of them come from Murfreesboro and the Donaldson Pike area, which is the opposite end. So when you get up to the Reynolds Road, right there is the truck sign saying no trucks. And so that's the one, that one, and the one right there at the beginning of Couchville Pike and Bell Road are the two that I'm asking to have taken down. A lot of trucks don't travel Bell Road, to my understanding right now anyway. The majority of them do come from the Murfreesboro Donaldson Pike end.
Does anyone from Public Works know why the signs are there?
Okay.
You know, why the truck prohibition signs are there? We don't know.
We don't know.
I wonder if we can move to defer until we get an answer. I mean, why do we have that sign there? Was there a reason that it was put in?
So I'm thinking that whoever was referencing an email might need to be in attendance next month. Mr. Ali
Aphis.
Mr. Aphis would need to be in attendance next month. I guess that's the direction.
Well, like I said, if we could get some history, is there something legally that had the truck prohibition? If people have been using, if trucks are using that, was it due to weight? Was it due to something that we don't know?
Normally, the weight restriction is what's contemplated in the Metro Code.
So traditionally, if there is a truck prohibition, it's due to the road, I guess, engineering structure?
Yes. I mean, there are actually two provisions. There's the 1236-110 provision that I read to you, which specifically talks about weight restrictions. And then there's also 1236-090C, which also says the Traffic and Parking Commission may also by resolution prohibit the operation of trucks or other commercial vehicles, or may impose limitations as to the weight or size thereof on certain highways designated by the appropriate signs placed on such highways. But of course, just like anything else that you all would make a decision on, you would want to base that decision on evidence before you. And so I would assume and hope that when that was enacted originally that there was some evidentiary basis for it as to whether it was as to the pavement or weight-bearing capacity. I can't say.
I guess my concern is if all the trucks that need to use the street are currently able to, if we can just relay to them that they currently have all the ability, the new ones for the FedEx facility, not knowing why the original truck prohibition was put in place, I'd be hesitant to withdraw it unless there was a new reason. Apart from just, if they're just confused, can we just tell them that you guys are legally allowed to use the street if your business is along it?
Well, now the plan for that area, my understanding through planning, is that any property that's sold is to be industrial, commercial. So you're looking at you know, a potential of several more industrial parks or commercial buildings coming in right there that could possibly use trucks for deliveries. I mean, tractor trailers for whatever reason.
Do we know that the road can support that? This commission could look at weight limits, so
I can't answer.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So is there, do we have any kind of motion?
I would make a motion to defer until we can learn if there's any justification or any weight, you know, kind of per the code, any reason for the prohibition now.
All right, so we have
We
a,
could have the Mr. Aliakas reference in the email present, or that would be helpful.
and someone explain
All
why
right.
the signs are there to begin with.
so we have a motion to defer. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor of deferring? Any opposed? No. All right, so we're going to defer this item for another month.
Okay, thank you so much for your
Thank you,
time.
Councilmember. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Is Councilmember Murphy here? I don't see her. Okay. The next item we're going to discuss is authorized valet zone at 120 3rd Avenue South, requested by Parking Management Company. Is representatives of Parking Management Company here?
No, they are not, but Sergeant Bork with the
By my
Metropolitan
understanding,
Police
yes.
Department is here to speak on it.
Okay. Sergeant, please step forward, state your name for the record, please.
John Bork. I am in the Special Events Unit for the Police Department. The reason this valet came to my attention was during the Preds playoffs, we were trying to get traffic moving on 3rd Avenue, and the valet lane there is 2 spaces long, which in the old days was great. 2 spaces was plenty, but nowadays it is not because they're complimentary valet, so everyone wants to valet. There was 2 valets there, and their parking lot is to the south. Well, the valet lane runs north because it has to. That's the only place there's a parking lane. So what they were doing is they would get a car and do a 3-point U-turn, which stops traffic in both directions, and then turn back south so they could go to their parking lot. You can imagine how long this takes with 2 valets. It takes a very long time because one's supposed to stay with the box. Now, one was not always with the box because they were running back and forth. They were working as hard as they could for 2 guys doing it. And I had to put motors there just to stop them because when 3 cars would arrive at the same time, they would stop 1 car in the street and have the other 2 on the curb lane. So now they were valeting out of the travel lane, which completely stops that travel lane. And then they would commence to attempting a U-turn because it takes too long to go to Broadway, then to go to First. My understanding is that their contract is to park in the 222 building, which is at First and Demonbreun. So their direction of travel would be Broadway, make a right, go to First, make a right, go down just past Demonbreun, and there would be an entrance to the garage there. That's going to take a minute for any car. So you're talking about 5 or 10 minutes that one valet is gone. So even if you had 10 valets, I don't think this would be a good place for a valet because there's just not a close enough parking structure to pull the cars into so they could timely make their way back to valet more cars.
Thank you, Sergeant. Is there anyone else here to speak about this item? Commissioners?
I mean, I would trust the sergeant if he says it's not working and there's no feasible way for it to work with their parking. If they continue to park at 222, then, yeah.
So we need a motion to deny the permit. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to deny.
Second.
We have a first and a second.
I will recuse myself.
Okay. All right. We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we have 1 recusal for the record since the police officer was speaking. Okay. This item's been denied. Authorized residential permit parking at 4500 Nebraska Avenue to 4501 Utah Avenue from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. requested by Councilmember Murphy. I know Councilmember Murphy is not here, but there's several folks who are here to speak about this issue. Who's here to speak for this issue?
All 3 of us.
Are here to speak for? Okay, so who's here to speak against? 2, 3. Okay. So, If those who are here to speak for, if you would either designate one or all three of you come, but if you keep your comments, state your name for the record and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, please.
Sure. My name's Corey Jones.
Yeah, have a seat and state your name for the record.
My name's Corey Jones. I live at 4500 Nebraska Avenue. We're dealing with a conflict on that block of a lot of parking, a lack of safety. This has been ongoing for, gosh, I guess the past, year and a half. It's on any given night, it's, right there, that's my driveway on the left that you see right there. And it's not uncommon for me to come home after a long day's work and there be people parked in my driveway. They're visiting the businesses that are new on 46 at Utah. So that's led to a lot of confrontations, towings, and I've just seen a lot of close accidents because when you have people parked on both sides of 45th from that block, the visibility pulling out of the alleys is non-existent. We're a very active neighborhood, a lot of children. Personally, my daughter can't ride her bike on this 45th Avenue any longer because it's too dangerous. And you're talking about a Wednesday afternoon, a Wednesday evening. She can't come home and ride her bike because the traffic, the visibility from the parking, and then the speed at which people travel coming out of the alley, it's just too dangerous. So I know personally that's what I've witnessed. Mike and both Mikes are both my neighbors. Everyone on the block is dealing with the same thing. That's why every neighbor that's living there now signed off on the petition for no parking on one side. And, when every neighbor on the block is signing off on that, or on the street that lives there is signing off on that, there's a reason why. And it's because our quality of life and our safety have really become an issue. I mean, we've brought numerous pictures to show the parking jobs. I mean, Metro came out and put no parking in alley signs for us because there were people that were just brazen enough to just pull in the alley and park there, completely blocking it. And I'm not saying they're going to one business or to another. That's to be decided. But I know it's happening, and coincidentally it's happening as new businesses have opened at the end of the alley. Metro, I mean, you could look at the active calls on the report for West Nashville. There's probably been over 100 calls in the past 3 months from just illegally parked vehicles parked in your driveway / yard. I mean, it's an ongoing issue, and with the weather being what it is and our neighborhood becoming a much more desirable area, the traffic is only becoming much worse.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else like to speak for this?
My name is Mike Stiles. I live at the corner we're looking at on the left there at 4410 Nebraska. And initially, this all began, we started this process probably a year ago, just speaking with our councilwoman, trying to determine what we could do to curb some of the poor parking going on. And initially, that was even a result of local businesses instructing their employees to come park on our streets because their parking lot wasn't large enough. Now, we've had many discussions with them, and they've been very good to ask their employees to not park that back there. So they've worked with us to help resolve this. But still, and with Metro Public Works putting up signs, we've had people trying to help, but it's just really not getting better. Corey pretty much is like our block captain, and he's just, I love him for it. If he sees somebody parking illegally, he has to call it in, and then it takes time of our officers who have much more important things to do than come tow a car out of a yard. But that's essentially what it is, people parking in yards and not respecting just the neighborhood and the small street that it is. So even if permit parking is not the answer, I would like to know what we can do just to resolve this issue, because permit parking is not a benefit to us either. Now we have to get permits to allow friends to come over to our house and park. But it was the only way that we knew that we could limit the amount of traffic parking and people parking poorly on our street.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming.
Hello, My name is Mike Irwin. I live at 4506 Utah Avenue. I'm not directly on this block, but I've been closely involved with all the parking issues surrounding this area, and also active in the Sylvan Park Neighborhood Association. What I can validate what they've said, the people parking in cars that have literally destroyed yards, people park without any courtesy or any thought whatsoever. I'd be interested to see the number of calls that have been made and cars towed on that street as well as Utah Avenue. There's been quite a few. I know I've placed many calls. We face the same parking issues, and we were dissuaded by our council member from applying for permanent parking. But I think it's very applicable in this situation. Also, as far as I mean, there are cars there, the same cars every day. I don't know if they're employees. It's none of my business. But it's the same car. Maybe they have customers that come every day and park there. I don't know, and stay all day. But and also, Public Works came out and put a no on Utah Avenue at the corner of 46th. They put a 25-yard no parking next to the intersection. That's violated all the time. They had to put 15-yard no parking sign at the intersection of Utah and 45th. So it's an ongoing problem, and we need to know what our options are. Permanent parking is not it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we have some folks here to speak against this issue.
Hello, my name is Jim Jacobs, and I'm the owner of 132 46th Avenue North, which is the commercial property with Answer Restaurant and Scouts Barbershop. We request a deny of this for several reasons. Basically, what this does is it pushes what is potentially considered a problem today into another portion of Sylvan Park. These patrons of the restaurant and patrons of the barbershop are going to continue to park somewhere. And if it's pushed further back into the neighborhood, well, that just causes more traffic and congestion beyond further where the commercial building is. And so people are going to be walking further distances, people are going to be driving further distances. I'm very sensitive to his children playing in the neighborhood too. I've got two small daughters under the age of 5. Unfortunately, what this would be doing is just pushing this into another part of Sylvan Park and making it an issue for someone else, where these people actually have the ability to park on 2 streets. They're actually corner properties. They can park on 46th. They can park on Nebraska and Utah, and also 45th. All of these houses here actually have alley access to where at least one I know is parking in the rear of their property, and I know others could as well. In addition to this, I know we've got a petition of almost 40 people in the surrounding streets that are very much against this, and I think they see what it could potentially do to the neighborhood. There's also some question as to whether where is the right-of-way on these streets, and it's my understanding that the right-of-way is actually several feet into the yard, into the green space of what perhaps these neighbors could be calling their yard. And so, hopefully maybe a denial of this, maybe, someone could come out and determine, okay, where is this spot? Because I do believe that a lot of these people, what they think are parking on their, in their yard or in their property, it is actually not. And you can tell by telephone poles and previous survey stakes by a vacant lot there as well. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak? Okay, so commissioners?
I want to know how many homes occupy the block that was looking at.
There are only 3 homes on 45th Avenue between Utah and Nebraska, and 1 vacant lot.
One being built, and I personally spoke with the owner of that lot, and he's got the same opinion that we are. That they're currently doing construction on that property, and they've had to highlight giant rocks that say no parking, because they're dealing with actually having an issue getting equipment onto that block. And all the cars are prohibiting that.
How many cars generally park there a day?
From 45th to 46, in that block between Nebraska and Utah, you know, on a busy night, you'll see anywhere from 20 to 25 vehicles lined up both sides and at the beginning where the alley curves in. Again, that's what brings the visibility when pulling out of the alley into question. That's where my point comes through with that, because you can't see when you're pulling out of the alley onto 45th and you've got vehicles on both sides. You can't see what's coming. I've seen way too many almost serious accidents there, and that's what initially brought all this up, was safety. We have a very active neighborhood, and when you've got people lined up both sides, which it normally is, because it's a popular spot and it's new, you can't see anything.
All right. Any commissioners, other questions?
I just have a question. Is there like a legal street width that's required in order to have on-street parking? Because it does look like a narrow street, and I wasn't sure if that is it currently allowed, or is it happening illegally? Or?
It looks narrow, but if you look at probably where the right-of-way is and the telephone poles, it's not as narrow as you think, and actually where people park. It makes it a lot more narrow too, because actually I've got pictures of what people have been policing the right-of-way right now, and you actually have boulders, you have rocks, you have planters, and other things that are blocking people from parking.
Yeah, so we actually have lots of pictures that we brought also to show a lot of the parking jobs that we're talking about and dealing with as neighbors. For all three of the current residents that are living there to completely sign off on this. I know he said he had, a long list of people, but every resident that lives on that block signed off on it, and the one that's building there is of the same opinion. There's a reason for that. When you have cars lined up both sides of 45th, you're lucky to get one car down.
All right. So is there anyone from Public Works that can address the issue of the commissioner, which relates to, I guess, really the size of the street and where the easements are, et cetera? Mr. Hammond?
Can we go back to the picture as well? It's confusing about where exactly is the property line and where's the roadway.
That looks very dated. There's no yellow lines going through the center of the street. I've got more updated picture.
That's the Google.
That's the Google line.
Yeah.
The Google line. Okay. Mr. Hammond.
So a review of the code on my part would probably be in order, but from memory, we would look at not right-of-way width, but actually paved street width. And so when you're looking at the paved street width, I believe code makes reference to on-street parking is only allowed if 12 feet are reserved, outside of that for traffic to pass on.
Okay. Can you go back to the Google picture? What's the Metro Code say with relation to parking on the grass? Because if I'm not mistaken, the picture that we just showed of Google doesn't show it wide enough to have on-street parking. So they got to be parking on the grass, which is a violation of.
According to Traffic and Parking Code 12.40.070, if the width of the roadway does not exceed 20 feet, then we can restrict parking on both sides of the road. Or if it does not exceed 30 feet, then we can restrict it on one side of the road. 31 and above feet, then parking is allowed.
Do we have a width of that street or is that the pavement? Is that what the street?
That's paving.
I see that the councilwoman is supporting this. I know she's not here with us, so.
She actually, she is the applicant.
Okay. Question, what's, because there's been conversations back and forth about no parking and residential permanent parking. What's the actual request before the commission, please?
The request is for residential permit parking from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. on 45th between Nebraska and Utah.
Okay.
22 feet. So that falls into the, you can restrict on one side.
Right. But to do that, we always take into consideration that if a resident does have available on-street parking, because to go in a residential neighborhood and restrict parking on one side of the street, we kind of need to get the neighbors involved in it and make sure they understand what is going on prior to that. But we do have the authority, according to the code, to do that.
So I guess I'm curious, why is it a residential parking permit when it seems like the goal is just to prevent parking entirely? Because it sounds like the concerns are any parked cars on the street are really making it dangerous.
It's true. Well, again, we've kind of leaned on our councilwoman to advise us what would be best for us. We weren't really in the know about what was acceptable, what our options even were. So she presented this option, just so it didn't, entirely rule out parking on one side. She said that the permit parking may be the way to go. We're just we just need a solution. Yeah. We need some visibility and we need some safety back to our street.
So if residential parking, if this motion requested by Councilwoman Murphy is approved, then is the parking going to be on one side only and it's going to be residential during those hours?
Correct.
And what's going to happen those other hours? Is it going to go to both sides, the hours that it's not enforceable?
I sure hope not.
But I'm just,
Yeah, we're trying to understand.
Right.
I think the commissioner is adds a question, trying to understand how this works.
Normally what we do, we restrict the parking on one side of the road, both sides of the road, depending on the width of the roadway. So what you would do if we restrict parking on one side of the roadway, it's a possibility that the current cars that are parking there will move to the other side of the road.
But so what's going on now is there's no restrictions?
There's no restrictions. It's open parking for anyone that wants to park.
On both sides of the road any
both
time of the day?
Both sides of the roadway, yes.
And are driveways where people can see them and people are blocking those driveways?
Blocking and even parking in.
I mean, I know we've seen this happen in Councilman Sledge's, like 12 South, and Hillsborough area, we've gone more and more and more to residential parking because people can't access their homes.
Sure.
So,
but there is no driveway. Are there any driveways?
Yeah, my driveway is on 45th.
One driveway. Yeah. I think the rest is alley access.
I wonder, could we sign the alley and the driveway to say, because, whatever the no parking to corner?
We have the option of going out and install signs that say no parking to driveways, no parking to alleys, if that will assist with the problem that the residents are having.
So we just recently had, Works came out and they actually put no parking in alley signs. I think we have now 6 of them in a 2-block radius. And I can show you pictures from last week where people park right in front of it.
Right.
It's not about it. They don't abide by it. It's not really an issue that.
Right.
What is the enforcement process once something is posted like that?
$10 ticket. No parking in alley. If you park in the alley, it's a $10 ticket. I've had several of the officers. So it's the same officers that come out.
Okay.
And frankly, they're bothered by it because they're wasting their time coming out and doing the same thing multiple times a week. And he even told me, Officer Cox, he said, $10 ticket's not going to do anything. He said, it's not going to solve the problem.
So is it that you feel that permit parking would help, that would solve it?
Either permit parking or no parking.
But the permit parking process, I'd like to understand more about that. So that would mean that if someone were to come visit you, you have to apply for a permit for them to visit you in your own home.
And Mike, you may be able to speak to this better than I would.
That is correct under certain conditions, yes.
I'm looking at those, some of the places, I'm thinking particularly around Vanderbilt, where residents live and there's residential parking permits. I think there's and again, I think you all would have to advise us in there like an hour's grace or something.
Right. Depending on how we sign it, it could be residential permit parking with a 1 hour for non-permit holders. If you're a residential permit parking holder, if you have the permit, you have the option of obtaining a visitor's permit. The residential permit is $10 and the visitor's permit is $5 if you need those.
And again, these are all sacrifices that neighbors are willing to make due to the conditions that we're dealing with now. Everyone that lives on the block knows that we're going to have to come out of pocket for permits for our guests. And we're okay with that because we need this problem taken care of in a timely manner. You know, it's of the utmost importance just for safety.
How do you all decide, Diane, I mean, what the process is going to be? You know, if for residential parking, if this is approved, is there a generic residential or where guests can come or somebody can park there for a short term?
Based on the request that they submitted to us, it is residential parking from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. with no mention of 1 hour time limit parking for anyone other than residents.
I mean, my memory, though, with the 12 South discussions we've had is that the permit parking does require that there's no available off-site parking for the number of units. You know, there was the study that was required. So my concern here is that this would be more appropriate for no parking on maybe one side than it would be for permit parking, just to be honest, because there is available, you know, driveway and alley access.
Based on the staff report that we did, they do not meet the requirements for residential permit parking, with the exception of the petition form was signed by 75% of the residents, which means they're willing to bear the cost of this.
But the other requirements were not met?
The other requirements are not met because they have on-street parking in front of their properties.
Well, then, I mean, I would request maybe a denial of the parking permit, but then a request to look at a no parking. I mean, I don't know if we can make that, but look at no parking on either one or both sides, depending on, because that seems like that would achieve a similar goal, but it might be more appropriate for the expressed concerns.
We can deny, if the commission decides to deny this request, then we can go back and issue an additional service request to look at installing no parking signs on one side or both sides of the street. We can look into that. And also, similar, we can also install no parking to alley signs on both sides of the alley to assist with the problem that you're having with vehicles coming out of the alley. We have the option of doing those things.
The area where they're parking, is it a grassy area?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Do we know where the property lines are?
They appear to be several feet inside into the grassy area.
So that's my.
So if they pull off of the roadway and they're parking and they're parked halfway on your property,
There's the survey stakes.
So does right
that's
of
the
way
state.
mean that someone can park on your grass, on your yard, all four wheels of their car? That's something we've been asking over and over. Is we're okay with street parking that is within the legal limits. We've already discussed people ignoring the no parking to alley signs and things like that, but no one has been able to answer for us what is the rule when there's not a physical curb, how far that car can come into your own personal. It's a yard I maintain.
Well, this picture with the stakes, I mean, there's plenty of room for a car to park all four wheels off of the roadway
and that's
in the grass, and that's well within.
That's legal for someone else to park on my grass.
It's not your grass. If the white stakes here are the property markers, then that's not your property. That's probably going to be an easement property.
But is that legal? Because you're not allowed to park on a grassy strip between a sidewalk. I'm just curious.
That's correct, but it's
No
not.
sidewalk.
Yeah.
So if we had a sidewalk and a
the
curb.
grass is not addressed in the. That's what I was looking to hear. The grass, just parking on the side, and the grass is not addressed right here in the Metro Code.
So does our
But
street?
I think it actually there may be a code.
Codes violation.
A code violation
It is a codes violation
for residential
to park
area
on
for parking in the grass.
Mm-hmm.
That's something we'd have to look into. I'm not sure about that.
Is our street wide enough for the street parking? I mean, you mentioned that earlier. Could we follow back on that?
I would prefer to go out and measure it before I state. But I think Corby did the measurement on the Google map. I think it measured out 22 feet. I think that's what Corby measured for us.
It's 22 feet.
You can see here, actually, our utility poles typically not in the right of way. They're typically not on people's property. You can see that this is we probably measure how many feet.
But if it's a codes violation to park in the grass, then
Yeah, we just have to look up Metro codes and see.
I know we've had a motion. Can I ask another question?
Okay, we don't have a second of any motion.
How many parking places are provided for customers and employees at these businesses?
There are a total of 19 parking spots, 5 in front and then 14 in the rear. Another thing, the restaurant, when us as a developer was putting someone in there, we're very sensitive to parking. We didn't want someone that was going to be going all hours. This restaurant is actually just open for nights from 4:30 to 10, and then also for brunch from 10 to 2.
Isn't there a big effort to try to get people to park at the community center and walk?
These are the restaurant proprietors, and they're doing a very good job of it. I think someone in the barber shop, you'll see some of those, I think, parking on some of the side streets. And we can, as an owner, say, hey, can tell you where to park or not to park, especially when it's, you can, park on the street. But, we do all we can to tell them to park in the communities.
I would like to go on record. I mean, one of the things I've seen in the years I've been here, it's great, Nashville's growing, and a lot of things are going on, but people that have homes and have property, pay property taxes because of this growth in a lot of Nashville, can't get in their driveways. The alleys aren't safe for them to use as an option to come in, and there's got to be something that we can do so that people can park and ambulances can get there. People can get out and go to appointments that they need to,
and mind you, this business is dropped right in the middle of a neighborhood, right in the middle of just homes all the way around.
We're seeing that a lot. I mean, that's all over Nashville
for decades, and so you're basically just pushing it, another block, another 2 blocks. I mean, if the street is 18 feet somewhere else, you do, permit parking, kind of there, and where do guests park, and where does anybody park? I mean, without that. And these people have made decisions. I mean, they spent over, $500,000 on their build out, and based upon there's 14 spaces in the back and there's on-street parking, and it really hurts, it hurt your business. People won't come. They have to, park farther and further away, and other neighbors just
on that same.
Wait, just
2 blocks over.
All right, wait just a second.
All over Nashville.
All right. So, commissioners, do we have any kind of motion on the item before us?
I mean, I'd motion to either, we could defer and then come back, but I do think we should look at whether or not this is appropriate for residential parking permit versus restriction on one side. So, I mean, maybe I'll change my motion to say defer to reconsider once we have the street width underhand and have a better sense of what the code says on parking on grass. It seems like we have a lot of questions, though, on just what's allowed.
And could we, perhaps the councilwoman can come, and if she's representing everyone,
Right. So we have a motion to defer. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Okay. All in favor of this motion to defer?
Aye.
Any opposed to this motion? Okay.
Thank you all.
We have voted to defer till next month. We need the council member to be present, please. All right. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you. Commissioners and guests, thank you for coming. All right. Other items. Do we have an item here about carriage parking on First Avenue?
Yes, we do, and we need to make the commissioners aware of the fact that there will be no action on the part of the commission because the commission's action was approved in April, so therefore we have to wait at least 6 months. The carriage companies would still like to come and speak to the commission, but no action will be required by the commission.
Okay. So, Sugar Creek Carriages would like to speak to the commission concerning the item we approved.
That is correct.
We voted on
Yes.
in April. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
All right. If you would welcome back.
Welcome back.
And if you would state your name for the record and keep your comments 3 minutes or less, please. That'd be great.
Because there's a couple of other issues that we requested to speak about as well. My name's Camel Warren Zuniga. I am a manager and operator with Sugar Creek Carriages.
I'm John Smith, owner. Me and my wife Brenda own Sugar Creek Carriages.
Back in April, we requested to have more carriage parking. We have 13 permits, and at that time we had spots for 4. You guys gracefully moved us to Broadway to share the stand with the taxis and onto First Street. Well, they have now divided the Broadway stand in half. We went from 4 prime spots to 2. Our income has been cut in half. First Street has become an issue as well because it is numerously closed because of private permits. We can't access that stand. Our horses are walking, and it's also now becoming a traffic hazard with the carriages, a lot of the companies trying to get the prime 2 spots on Broadway so that we can work. And I'd like to show you a video that has been put together. I don't know how well on my laptop because I don't have access to your big screen that you will all be seeing this. We have asked Metro numerous times to help with enforcement on parking. There is a sign that says no parking from the back of the carriage stand. It goes into the crosswalk. It blocks a fire hydrant, which is actually against a Metro code, a couple of Metro codes. We've been told the carriages are being given leniency. Something is going to happen. Somebody's going to get seriously hurt or killed. People that are ADA in wheelchairs do not have access to the crosswalks and the ramps, and that is a federal regulation. We're asking to help with the parking issue. We'd like to see, I know you guys cannot take any action for another 3 months where the carriage stand, taxi cab stand is turned completely into a carriage stand, and maybe have the taxis moved to 2nd Street where the old carriage stand was. They still have prime area with a lot of people. We still have enough area. It gives us more room to get the carriages into a prime area where we are visibly seen. We are a sight by, an impulse. If you don't see us or know about us, you're not going to come ride. We're your historians to your city. We can't tell about the city, tell people places to go, eat, see, do. They can't see us. But I'm hoping you all can see this on my computer the best that we can. There is no sound, so you guys aren't missing any sound. These videos were taken from about the middle of June all the way into last night. There are 3 carriage companies that do not abide by the laws. I know with Sugar Creek Carriages, if our drivers are caught parking, blocking the fire hydrant, the crosswalk, or anything like that, they're immediately sent home that night, possibly terminated depending on how many times the offense has occurred, and are possibly pulled off of their shifts. And you can see people are having to walk around these carriages. Cars, somebody's going to come flying around First Street onto Broadway, and they're going to rear end one of those carriages. One of those horses spooked because we're not getting enforcement from Metro. They're flight animals. I can't turn around behind me and know what's in front of me, why they're spooking. As they back over your brand new baby in a stroller, because we're not getting enforcement. It's got to stop. We need to have the room where we're seen and not going to have to fight for that visibility. We've already lost half of our income because of this.
Thank you.
I've got,
yes, Mr. Smith.
Yes, the reason I'm here is public safety. That's my main concern. My secondary reason is loss of income from my business and from my drivers. What's happening is Southern Comfort and American Melanie Carriages are taking the permit-only parking in the roundabout and staging their carriages there, while my company is on First Avenue in the carriage stand, pretty much all of them, and the roundabout is ahead of First Avenue. They stage their carriages there, which is against the law, we've requested through Parks on Diane Marshall's recommendation to see if we could get permitted also. We can't. There's too many permitted there already. But Southern Comfort and American Melanie are breaking the ordinances, parking in the no parking zone. As soon as one of their carriages leave the carriage stand, their company will pull in. That's causing us a great hardship on money, and it's not fair. It's really not fair. I would like to have something done on this issue. And my company, I've issued police authorized body cameras, they're Wolfcom, and each one of my carriage drivers wear these body cameras. I monitor these cameras on my computer at home after shift or the next morning. I've counted about 5 different incidents, two of them where wheelchair people couldn't go across the crosswalk because Southern Comfort, mostly Southern Comfort, is blocking the carriage stand by the fire hydrant with the rear end of the carriage setting out. The wheelchair guy tries to go around, and here comes a cement mixer, about runs right into the guy. That's why I'm here, public safety. Now, I've seen it. I've got it documented on Sundays. There's women and children with families. That's a big day for the families, and I don't know why, but they concentrate, seems to be down there around on the roundabout. Here they are, a woman with 3 children walking across the crosswalk and tries to go around. Well, a car almost hits them. Another incident because they're blocking the fire hydrant, the crosswalk, behind the carriage stand, while their other carriages are waiting to pull up, costing my company money when we are abiding by the law and the ordinances. These companies are repeatedly getting away with ordinance and laws being broke. The Transportation and License Commission, it seems like they're not doing nothing about it.
They send us to you all.
And don't get me wrong. I am pro, you know what, I love the police. I'm all for this. Back in 2002 and 2003, Diane might know this, I was the one that provided the ordinances. Me and a gentleman named Clayton Lemoyne provided the ordinances for the council to regulate the carriages. I'm a firm believer in them ordinances, and when people break them, it bothers me. And the law. That's all I've got to say, sir.
Thank you very much for coming to speak about this. Commissioners, any comments, questions? Okay. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it
I have
very,
a
very
question.
much.
Is there any way, I know that no real decision can be made, but have something in place maybe to extend that carriage stand so it happens in 90 days? So we have something in play because there is a major safety issue. Somebody's going to get hurt or killed because we can't get enforcement from Metro. They keep telling us we're offering leniency. It's officer discretion. It continues day after day after day.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Whatever issues are related to the police or enforcement.
And the Transportation License Commission also has inspectors that regulate the horse-drawn carriages.
They don't regulate it.
Okay.
When they send us to you, they tell us it's parking commission's problem. Contact Metro.
Okay.
Can we get some clarification on that?
Yes, that would be helpful to know where the demarcations are between what we're doing, and because some of the issues they discuss seem to relate to licensing. And that staging, aren't those staging issues?
Yes. So as far as misconduct on the part of another licensed carriage company, that would be within the jurisdiction of the Transportation Licensing Commission, because the licensing authority is the entity that has the authority to undertake disciplinary measures in response to violations of its code provisions by certificate holders or permitted drivers. I mean, to the extent that they are asking you all to take some additional action with regard to the action that you took in April, I'm not clear exactly what that would be. I mean, in general, the remedy, if you don't like a decision of this board or commission, is to the language that you read at the beginning, that you file a petition by writ of certiorari appealing from the decision of this commission. It is possible for this commission to rescind its prior actions. The standing rules of the 6 months rule says, once an appeal has been acted on by the commission, there shall be a waiting period of 6 months before a citizen or council member is allowed to present the same appeal at the same location. This does not rule out the possibility of the commission choosing to reconsider a vote under the normal parliamentary procedures. So the word reconsider there is a little bit of a incorrect terminology, because under Robert's Rules of Order, really, you can only do a motion to reconsider, I think, within a 24-hour period of the original motion, but a motion to rescind or amend may be brought subsequently according to parliamentary procedures. So there's also a provision in your standing rules about motions to rescind, and those say that no action of the commission may be rescinded except by a 3/4 vote of the full membership of the commission. So we've had that come back before, where we actually need 7 out of the full 9 members to vote in favor of an action to rescind a prior action of the board. So you could vote to rescind if that is what you're being asked to do, but it would have to be by that significant supermajority. And so, I'm not really clear on what you're being asked to do today, but those would be your options, other than just not taking any action.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor.
So I'm still confused a little bit about what they're being told to come to us to by another commission. If something's supposed to be regulated, and if this is a pedestrian safety issue, if licensing is supposed to be doing something, and they're saying we're supposed to be doing something.
And there may be some confusion between the commission itself vis-a-vis Public Works or police, other metro entities besides the Transportation Licensing Commission.
They're saying it's a parking issue, is what the TLC said.
I mean, there's parking staff at Public Works that they may be referring to, as opposed to the commission members. I don't mean to explain what someone else is saying. I can't.
Now, I do have copies of 2 complaints that they filed with the Transportation License Commission as it relates to this. So they had filed complaints with Transportation License,
and no action was taken. They said it has to be referred to Parking Commission, because Parking Commission handles where we park and everything. That's why we're asking if we can get the carriage stand put into the taxi stand and have the taxis moved over to Second. It's going to ease that stress, possibly, hopefully, of the carriages possibly having a fatal accident on that corner, because everybody is trying to fight for those 2 prime locations. Because otherwise, if you're sitting on First, like I said, our income has been cut in half.
I mean, who gets to park at the roundabout?
No one.
So why are people parking there?
It's permanent parking through parks, and we requested, through Diane Marshall told us to request if we could get permitted also, and there's too many people already there. The pedal taverns, the 3-wheel bicycles and golf carts and all that, there's too many there already, is what the gentleman told us.
I mean, it kind of seems like there's 2 problems. One is an enforcement problem, which sounds like we don't have any enforcement capacity, so we can't do anything on the enforcement issue. And then the expansion of the parking, I mean, I think that's something maybe we should reconsider at some point, but at this point, without talking to the taxi companies or the Hard Rock Cafe or all the other people who are currently using the street, I don't feel comfortable.
The Hard Rock doesn't use that area.
Okay, well, I don't feel comfortable making any decision at this moment to expand parking. But I do hope we can get some encouragement and enforcement, because it does sound like that's the immediate issue.
It's an immediate issue, and it's becoming to the point because it's becoming a liability issue under the city.
Well, that's not something we have. It sounds like we have any. We don't.
I can't even get Metro to help. Okay, so we can't even get Metro to help us, and Metro's the one in our ordinance. It says we will follow Metro. Metro will write the citations. They don't do it.
Have you contacted the precinct commander?
Yep. I've even talked to the chief of police.
Lieutenant Burke?
Burke and everybody else. I've even talked to the chief of police. We've been all warned, and especially warned when we were on 2nd. The carriages have been warned that they will write tickets. It never happens. It never
Someone
happens.
will eventually get hurt there. I've seen it on the body cameras.
We had fireworks going off Saturday night. There was a carriage in that crosswalk. Had that horse spooked with all the people coming out of all the buildings at 9:30 to watch them fireworks,
Yep.
you would have had people that were seriously hurt or killed.
That's my major concern here. I said safety is number one to me.
All right. I think this commission needs more guidance from maybe legal, public works, et cetera, before we can really consider additional items based on what I'm hearing. So if we could get some additional guidance before we consider this item again, that would be helpful, Ms. Marshall.
Can we possibly get that before the next meeting? Because if it's something that we look at changing, does that mean we need to have 7 people here to do that? Which I just counted. We didn't include you. We don't. 1, 2, 3.
We only have 7 today.
So, I mean, if we can get some clarification ahead of time about what we have to do that's in our scope. And I know safety's a big one.
Okay. All right. Is next month's meeting going to be at the same?
It will be here again.
Again, okay. And then my understanding is on 51st Avenue, there's still ongoing items, and we'll have, when there's a full report, will be
There
updated.
still is ongoing items as it relates to 51st Avenue.
All right. So I think we have gotten through all the items on our agenda.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
We have a second. We have first and second. All in favor? All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.